Welcome to the POMcast with Steve Willis, your independent, unbiased, and unbought source for Ole Miss athletics. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This Tuesday, September 29th, 2020. Hope everybody is doing well. We got a good podcast in store for you today. We've got a look at a deep dive kind of into Kentucky, what to expect. We're going to go back and look at their game against Auburn. We're going to talk about the Ole Miss secondary and defense and why Saturday shouldn't necessarily alarm you. Now, there's some warts that are going to be only solved in recruiting, but there's some things that can jump from week 1 to week 2. And we'll continue around the SEC this weekend a little bit as well. So thank you for joining the POMcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, right here on the Positively Ole Miss Network. You can follow us on Twitter at @TheStephenWillis and at Ole Positively. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast or join our group at Positively Ole Miss. You can subscribe on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Hit the bell for notifications so you'll always know when we are live and news is breaking. And you can follow our Twitch channel at Positively Ole Miss. If you are more of an audio person, you can follow the podcast, and we're available on basically every podcatcher that is out there. Currently, to my knowledge, we are, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, and we are waiting on iHeartRadio and Pandora. But that is kind of where we are. We want to be where you are already. We don't want to ask you to go to a second location, and we're never going to ask you directly for money. We are all about free content and the ability to follow Ole Miss and the sports you love for nothing. You should not be extorted for nothing. I mean, there's no amount of information that's being put out right now that warrants you paying money. It's just not. You're not getting any return of investment on that at all. No ROI whatsoever. But later on this week, we've got Nate Gabler of the Grove Report going to be on the podcast this week to talk about the Kentucky game. I want to talk to him a little bit about the Texas A&M versus Vandy game this weekend. I actually watched that, and I might have been the person that did, but that was a fantastic game. They looked offensively challenged, but 17-12. I told you, and I completely told you that Texas A&M wasn't 30.5 points better than anybody. You heard that on Around the SEC. That'll be on Thursday at 2 o'clock as well, Around the SEC with Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham. And we're going to look at all the games and break them down and things like that. So it's the perfect pregame for the Ole Miss game. So if you're going anywhere, you want to put up a podcast in the car, go for it. And like I said, we're going to be all video in the next 6 to 7 months. We got a lot of water has to flow into that bridge between now and then, but we should be there by at the latest next summer, and we have some cool things in store for you that nobody is even touching on this beat. So it's pretty cool. So let's get into Kentucky a little bit. And I looked at the Auburn-Kentucky game, and they're very sound defensively. It just happens that Seth Williams became a man a couple of times and scored touchdowns to put that game out of reach. But if you look at them offensively, Auburn's not where they were last year. So Kentucky is going to be down as well, I think. They rediscovered the forward pass. They threw the ball 38 times. Kentucky, 38 times. And now that Lynn Bowden has graduated, I guess they have rediscovered the forward pass. But, when it was a close one-score game, they were, trying to move the ball down the field. Terry Wilson threw a pick as well. They threw for 239 yards on 38 attempts, 24 completions. That's about 10 yards per attempt. They ran the ball 40 times, so they are a little bit more run than pass, but a very balanced offense in week 1. I do not expect to see that in week 2. Although you could see the secondary's performance against Florida and think, hey, maybe we can make some hay doing that. But there's, a week 1 to week 2 jump, and a significant one. And the potential, we haven't heard yet, of getting Otis Reese back. Once we know that for sure, if he gets back, all of a sudden that secondary could look completely different. Now, they're not going to get Jacob Springer, the American Conference all-conference player that transferred into Ole Miss as a grad transfer because of Naval Academy stipulations and the fact that you don't really pay to go to school at the Naval Academy. Everybody's on scholarship there. So they do that eligibility to prevent, a competitive advantage. I'm not sure. So there's a potential for that to happen, but I expect Kentucky to be run heavy in week 2. Learn their lesson that they're not a pass team. Terry Wilson shouldn't be throwing the ball 38 times a game, or 37, whatever. They need to learn that lesson, because that's not who they are. That's not what they are. That's not a winning recipe. Now, if you look at the Seth Williams Bo Nix thing, they only threw for 230 yards as well. They did not have a great day. Like I said, other than Seth Williams grown manning it was a tight game. All right, segment 1 in the books. Come see us. Next segment, Positively Ole Miss, Stephen Willis.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
All right, POMcast, Stephen Willis right here on this Tuesday morning. Hope everybody is doing well. Thanks for listening. We went over segment 1, the Kentucky-Auburn game, and the fact that Kentucky was overly reliant on the pass. Now, Lennon Bowden is not back there, and my thoughts throughout all of this is if you don't have a deep threat, you can't buy Kentucky. And in week one, they did not have a deep threat. Somebody that will force that defense to not play in that 15-yard box. Like I said, for the Florida game against Ole Miss, you want to force those safeties to defend the 25, 35-yard box, and that's going to open everything up. If they don't have to respect that, they can stay where they are and just compress you and constrict you, and that's when that defense starts looking dominant. It's all about making safeties worry in college football. Now, in the SEC, it's a prevalent of man defense with the exception of Elko at 8 a.m. He plays a lot of zone, but most everybody is a man-to-man defense, and they want to play two-man, which is two deep safeties and man-to-man underneath. But you could see something like that this weekend. They really want to do it, and I think that Matt Corral's running ability, which unlocked against Florida a lot, caught them, I think, by surprise. I think he's going to catch Kentucky because you can't really play two-man against a running quarterback because everybody from the second level has their back turned to the quarterback. So you get past the defensive line is 5, 6, 7, 8 yards. So Matt Corral's running ability will hopefully prevent that from happening, because if you do not have a running quarterback, this is the dirty secret of college football. Alabama, LSU, all those with super athletes, they were making a living playing two-man on people. Kirby at Georgia plays a lot of two-man. And it's because those safeties are looking at the quarterback for the pass. Their super athletes are covering underneath, and their defensive line is eventually going to get home because their players are better than your players. And the next thing you know, they're going to win a 20-13 game because there's so much work you have to do offensively. That's why the spread offense was created, to break that two-man cycle. That Alabama defense from 2009, that's what I'm talking about. 2010, they want to play three-man front, four linebackers. They can make that a five-man front if they need to be, play two-man, and just let the safeties work. That was their secret sauce. Get home on the front, guard it on the back. Everybody else man-to-man. That was legitimately the secret sauce. And the New England Patriots were the same way. It was a little bit more extravagant version of it, but it was man-to-man with safety help over the top. It's something to look at for this. And that's why really Johnny Football changed the game in college football inside of a spread offense, because he just ate the SEC's man defense up. He won a Heisman off of it. So Matt Corral has the ability to work this Kentucky defense that only gave up about 320 yards total. So it's just worth paying attention to. You want to attack this defense. This defense has a lot of simple things because they're basically a physical man defense. They will play some zone. They obviously, all teams will mix up coverages, but the dominant coverage will be that man coverage. I do believe. And if you can't throw the ball, especially downfield, and expand that box, I'm going to say that a lot this season. So by the time it's over, you will understand that if you don't expand that box, your offense is going to struggle. Now, with Elijah Moore and Matt Corral in the deep ball, they've got avenues to expand that box. They're going into week 2 worried about those receivers with the number of deep passes completed last week against Florida, because they all respect Florida. I mean, my favorite joke of all time was the Atlantic will defeat Florida before Kentucky will. Of course, Dan Mullen of Florida ruined that for me a couple of years ago, but that's where Kentucky kind of sits in the pantheon. And they're going to base everything off that defense. And normally for them, the offense is a complementary piece to that defense. They want to beat you 17-13, 20-17. Just a physical football game to where after it's over, you know Kentucky was there. And Mark Stoops has done a phenomenal job making that into a reality to where when people play Kentucky, that's what they think of. Eddie Gran, offensive coordinator, this run system, they kind of went to it mid-season, and they've never looked back. So there is no home run threat on this team that I see for Kentucky. There just isn't. There's no Lynn Bowden. There's no Benny Snell. It's a bunch of good dudes, but it is just a bunch of dudes. There is no Lynn Bowden, no Benny Snell. They were so good 2 years ago, Kentucky, because Terry Wilson was the third level of that equation. You remove players from that, he gets a little worse. Now, he is a good quarterback and probably one of the better runners from the quarterback position. I expect Ole Miss to play a little zone this weekend and just force Terry Wilson to pick you apart. That would be smart. Now, I expect, as I've described, is Ole Miss having a high-risk, high-reward defense. That's the way it's built. And whenever we get all the guys here, that's the way it's going to look. But right now, even though they're still playing that a little bit, they need more and more players. Now, in the secondary, like Dean Leonard got cleared the night before. He did service team all week and was not prepared to play. That's not Dean's fault. That's the SEC. That's the SEC's fault. Cleared him that close to game time. This would be, week 4 or week 5 of a normal season, and they're just clearing people now? That's ridiculous. Can't do that. There's a rumor that Otis Reese could be cleared by this weekend. That would help as well. Remember, he's my prediction to play that star. I mean, he's perfectly suited for that third position. You're going to get defensive back level coverage, and you're going to get a monster against the run. He's Tony Connor Part 2. What made our defense so good in 2014, Otis Reese does that same stuff. Jacob Springer, whenever he gets eligible, all of a sudden you're looking at somebody that had 9 sacks or something last year. I expect him to be a blitzer. I expect him to play that Jalen Jones role. AJ Finley is going to be fine. He should have had 2 picks in that game. And actually, whenever looking at everything, he actually didn't play that horrible of a game. He got his hands on the ball and was in the right position. He will get there. There will be a jump from week 1 to week 2. I mean, just there always is a jump between week 1 and week 2. This year it will be more pronounced. So those are things to be optimistic about the secondary. Now, nobody can cover for 7 seconds and the defensive line has to get home. Defensive line problem can only be solved in recruiting. There's no knight coming in shining armor to save the day. Kind of is what it is. You can probably mask that with a little movement up front, a little slanting, play some games. I mean, you could probably do that. But then it goes to the high risk, high reward. Because if you slant the wrong way on a play where they guess you're wrong, it's like Tecmo Bowl. It's a 10, 15-yard game. So just understand that. And understand this, that 2021 is more important than 2020. And 2022 is more important than 2021. That hasn't changed. And this season, celebrate the positives and ignore the negatives. That's going to be the only way to get through this. This is a build. This is going to be fun. This is going to be what we've been waiting for ever since the end of the Sugar Bowl. This is attempting to make Ole Miss a national brand. This is attempting to grow Ole Miss into a blue blood. So let's see how this happens. Let's see how this moves forward. Because it could be quite a fun ride. All right, segment 2 in the books. POMcast, Stephen Willis, thanks for listening.
You want to answer that, don't you? I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on, answer it already! Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive. A message from Florida's trusted choice independent insurance agents.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis. I just want you to stick around a little longer. We're going to get back to the podcast right after these messages.
Tonight, nearly 40,000 veterans across the country are homeless. These men and women have pledged to serve our nation, and now we must serve them. Landlords across the country have helped make significant progress in reducing veteran homelessness by making housing available, but there is more that we can do to bring our veterans home. Visit www.va.gov/homeless to see how you can get involved. And if you are a veteran and you are experiencing homelessness, please call 877-4AID-VET. Thank you.
All right, POMcast, Stephen Willis right here on the Positively Ole Miss channel. Again, programming notes, you can see around the SEC at 2 o'clock on Thursday. The show will air at 10 o'clock every day. You can just show up to your normal social media and it will be there for you. Re-airs are going to pop up at 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's something to look forward to as well. We've been talking a little bit of Ole Miss and Kentucky. We have Nate Gabler planning on being on the podcast tomorrow. You might want to listen to that and listen to all the good stuff he has to say. We are all about free content, and he writes for the Grove Report, which is a Sports Illustrated channel and is completely free. And we are all about that. Because, as we said, nobody should be forced to pay to be informed. Nobody should be extorted for information. Because information is everybody. So basically what happens is, in this era of paying for information, this exclusivity is the fan base shrinks because there's no access to the information required to follow the team. We're trying to alleviate that. We're trying to provide that access. We're trying to get 12, 13, 14-year-olds that were gotten in the same way back in the 70s and the 80s by Clarion Ledger. So we're trying to do this on social media and just put it out for everybody. Everybody has a phone. Everybody has whatever they need. So we're trying to grow the fan base. That's the goal of Positively Ole Miss. You know, I might not be the best person for this, but I'm the person you got with the time and the resources to do this. So I apologize for not being the perfect candidate with the perfect radio voice. But no, I'm the person with the resources to get this done. And this is a long-term project. My goal is 10, 15 years down the road. You just go to Positively Ole Miss's YouTube page and it's growing, and we're looking at bringing people in to, host their shows there as well. So you only have to go to one place. You get notified when it's there. So the idea is pretty cool. And you'll see once we go to completely video and move on. Because I've got some pretty good ideas of where this can go. And since I'm not trying to make money on it, I can produce content that you want, not that I want. And that's important. That's very important. So, we talked about Kentucky's offense and Ole Miss's defense and the way that it works. Everything in defense revolves around that 15-yard box. From the safeties forward to the line of scrimmage, that's where teams want you to play defensively. Because everything gets smaller. Everything is in the red zone when you do that. If you can pull them backwards, the safeties backwards a little bit, and create those holes, for every 5 yards you do it, think of all the space that opens up. It's very important. Matt Corral throwing the deep ball against Florida was very important. And like I said, we called what was going to happen and how that game was going to be attacked almost exactly. Now, granted, we watched all of FAU. We knew how Ole Miss was going to be offensively. On defense, we watched all of 2015 Michigan. We knew how they played as well. There's going to be a jump on defense, but the defense will carry the offense. The defense will determine where this season goes. Just a thought. The defense will determine whether this is a 3-7 or this is a 6-4. Of course, that's the way it always pretty much is going to be. Once this defense starts going, it's going to look a little bit, ideally, like FAU did last year, forcing a lot of turnovers, a lot of lost yardage plays, and make 3 or 4 stops, and the offense can take over. So that's something to look at. And you're playing against Kentucky, which is just like I said, they have good players. They don't have great players. They are just a bunch of dudes, but they're a bunch of good dudes. And they're going to be experienced, and they're going to be well drilled, and they're going to make you earn it. You have to expand them. If you expand them, all of a sudden the whole offense can open up. All of a sudden the run game is going to be better. Everything is going to be better if you expand that box. Because the safety's coming down against the run. If they're half a second late, all of a sudden a hole develops. Messes up their fit. And that's kind of what we're looking for. Anyway, thanks for tuning in today. Stephen Willis, POMcast, right here on the Positively Ole Miss Network.